I just wish there was more. I wish there was more. I was so grateful and thankful, and don't want to sound like I don't have gratitude for those that did support us and got online and watched us and commented, and everybody loved it. But I just wish that could have sustained. I wish that we could have seen this past the pandemic and had the community really support this very guerrilla style, very organic kind of music.
Back to the boom bap era.
Yeah, exactly, right? And you asked about the tiny desk concerts and how similar we were. What I loved was we were compared to it often. Like a lot of people just saw
that's a good success.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a good
And
success.
part of it was because small is in our title and tiny is in theirs. A lot of people are very simple. They're like tiny box concert series, whatever. But I loved that we had that interview component. Like that was just, to me, our differentiator. It was so special to me. And I wish the community had taken more time to invest in the artists.
I love how I can feel you getting yourself together. You're like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Positioning is everything.
Ready.
Okay, let's do this. Oh, look, my nails match my shoes. Okay, go.
Yeah, go whenever you're ready.
Do like a paper towel. I'm sure I'm gonna wipe it down.
Oh, that towel behind you on the chair, that's yours.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're set up, Bookchi. well-run machine.
We do dabble and try. So what kind of sneakers are these?
These are Air Max. Don't ask me any more than that, since that's all I can tell you. I got them at the beginning of the summer, and they look like this now.
Okay.
They get worn regularly. Look, my workout, go for a walk shoe. And I live in Southeast, so anybody who's familiar with like the Hillcrest area, it's literally called Hillcrest for a reason, because I call it the San Francisco of DC. It's just all hills, and it's like the best. It's such a beautiful area. Southeast is like my favorite quadrant.
Okay.
And I think it's like the greenest part of DC. I think it's really beautiful.
Actually, I could see that.
Yeah, it's got a lot of parks, it's so underrated. Everybody thinks Southeast and they think crime, or they think, too many black people. I don't know. I said that and that's rude, but that's what people say.
No, that's what people say.
That's what people say.
Yeah.
And I love being around the diversity. I love being around people that are trying to live their lives, and have been cut off by landmarks, bridges, rivers, and it's just, I think it's peaceful. Like where I live is peaceful. It's chill. I've never had any issues. In fact, when I go to Northwest, that's when my car gets broken into. Southeast, I feel safer than anything, Yeah, so I love it. It's really green where I live, and there's hills everywhere, and the houses are beautiful. Like the neighborhood I live in is one of DC's spaces of the original Black wealth when they were pushed out of Northwest and moved into Southeast.
Yeah.
And then there's
a sad story of itself.
And in and of itself, it is extremely sad.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see Black families with generational wealth that have passed their homes down within their family, and they're still the original homeowners, and they're, you see a small bit of gentrification happening right now, but it's a really beautiful neighborhood.
How important is history?
History to me? I think it's extremely important because I'm a true believer in history repeating itself.
Yeah.
And it's really important that you pay attention to what's happened so that you can inform how you move forward, right? And a lot of the work that I do, I work in community engagement. And so it's particularly important to understand a community before you come in with problem solving, right? Like you don't know the problem. You might think you know the problem from a surface level, but I work in like community informed program development, I guess you could call it. And yeah, so like understanding history, understanding how history has impacted people at a deeper level than what people sea surface level, a lot of people are like, oh, well, they can help themselves, and why aren't they helping themselves? Well, do you understand the history? Do you fully, clearly understand not just the history, but the psychology that's involved in that history and how that has created a mental impact?
Also, do you understand how the community could have been betrayed by those that were supposed to help originally?
Absolutely understand that.
And why it may be hard to get help now, later down the road.
And why they continue to be betrayed. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I say when history repeats itself, I mean, history continues to move in one underpinning direction, right? Where that hasn't changed. Yeah, there might be more programs and services. There might be more possible opportunities being opened up. But to your point, that coupled with historical mistrust, historical wrongdoings, but it's not even just historical, it's continued mistrust, continued wrongdoings. And that makes such a big impact on the community and how people can move around. I was reading this thing recently. It was a research project that was done over the course of, 10, 15 years. And it was done on rats. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but done on rats. And they conditioned the rats not to exit a cage. So they had the cage, they had the door open, but every time they got close to the door, they would get zapped. And then they would retreat. And then after a course of time, then they started to reproduce. These rats started to reproduce, which was by design.
Offspring inherited that fear.
Their offspring were moved to different cage where the door was left open and there was no zapping, and they just never even walked towards the gate. They just knew. It was that conditioning that transfers through your DNA, which is a real thing. And people are only now just discovering that generational trauma passes through just in the natural course of things, right? In your DNA, it's there, it's in your head. So it's like, people are like, oh, you can change or you can never. No, it is embedded in your being. It is like a part of how if you were born with freckles, you were born with the same way you were born with this generational trauma. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years. So that generational trauma is deep. And I'm well aware of that. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that, particularly when you're working in any community or in communities.
Would you say this mindset poured into the Small Wooden series?
I would say yes, to an extent. I could draw a line. My work is always going to be community driven, like anything that I put my hands on. So Small Wooden Box concert series was a love project. Yeah, it was a labor of love, a project that, anything that I do in the art space is not something that I ever want to monetize. It's not ever something that I'm going to build as a career. It's always going to be my creative outlet. It's going to be something that brings me peace, something that brings me joy. I have my whole day job stuff, which is different, but there is a line. There's a line I can draw in terms of the concert series was built at a time where COVID was restricting opportunity to local artists, right? Smaller local artists that don't have that natural reach out into the community. So where do they go? Like, we worked with a lot of artists that generally found their audiences in spoken word, open mic nights and like those type of things, right? Where they were finding small gigs here and there as they continued to build their career. And during the pandemic, that was gone. Those small opportunities were no longer available. And so I saw that gap and I was like, well, let's try to take our hand in live streaming and see if we can just create a space that's pod-like. So like, taking all precautions for COVID, safety precautions or whatever, but creating a space where we can offer them those resources to have a larger reach and do something. And that was really awesome. And that was for the local community. And again, it was artist informed. So it was like, what do you need? What would make a great platform for you to be able to continue your work? I had dinner with an artist. Her name is Mega Luch, and she is an amazing vocalist. She was working on her project. She was working on an album. Her boyfriend, now fiance, is her producer. So they were living in one small apartment working on her album. And she was like, I have no outlet. Like, I have no way to just get out in front of an audience and So she was feeling creatively stifled, if you will, during the pandemic, because it was just them two in an apartment.
And artists need feedback.
They need feedback, and you need energy, right? Like, a lot of art comes from the energy you get from outside. And that was what kind of sparked the idea of like, okay, let's create a space where folks can come in and actually just do something and do some of their work and continue their work. She was actually on our show like 3 times, I think. But yeah, it's and again, just talking to the artists, talking to people and finding out what they need, what resources they need, what the concept was also embedded in. Hey, this is an opportunity for you to do something maybe a little bit different or outside of how you might normally perform, because folks might perform at a club or a small venue or whatever, but still a little bit prescriptive. Still like, it has to be like this, or it needs to be your album, or it needs to be whatever. So it's still a little bit restrictive. This was an opportunity like, hey, go outside of the box, right? Think differently. Here's an opportunity to perform in any way you want, and we're going to support that. So we did everything from like allowing them to be collaborative in the set design, allowing them to create a space that looks like theirs. Although one of the main factors was to promote Small Wooden Box as a venue, because Small Wooden Box is its own venue. No longer open, unfortunately, but at the time it was its own venue and had its own aesthetic. But now we can create this small little like space within this other space that's going to look like you, and you want it to represent you and your artistry. And that was really fun, collaborating with them to create a set design and do all of that and make it different every time. Yeah, it was really very much directed at, hey, we're just here to support you. This is not our show. This is your show. We're essentially your employees, to an extent. But so we were doing all the production and the film and the cutting and the editing, etc. And then had a photographer, sneak shot photography. She goes by Sneak Shot, Vicky. She was our photographer. She's an amazing concert photographer. I don't know if are you familiar with her? She's freaking amazing, but she does like big time stuff. And she was so generous in giving us her time and coming and taking incredible photos. So, during the pandemic, everybody was tight. A lot of artists were losing their income. This was not income driven. This was not based on any like revenue or anything. It was a community offering, essentially, to say, hey, come, we're not going to pay you. We can't pay you. But what we'll give you is we'll give you photos. You'll get like phenomenal professional style photos of your evening. We'll give you video snippets so that you can use later. So there was like kind of an artistic trade-off through the whole process, which was, I think, very valuable. So, yeah.
Where did the name come from?
So that's a Jamon question. Honestly, and I should say, I would be remiss to not say that I couldn't have done it without a full team, right? And so when I had the idea was born from, again, that communication I had with Megaluch, but then also motivated by Jamon owning the Small Wooden Box space. And he had used it. Small Wooden Box was his original brand for his textile design. Yeah, it's amazing. He's incredible. Like, he designs pillows and he designs curtains and uses his own photography and lays it on to the textile. And he was pushing it much harder years ago, right? And it kind of like fallen off. But then he had this beautiful loft standalone, like it was a carriage house once upon a time in Northwest DC, on Otis between 13th and 14th Street. Location's amazing. But the standalone part was really significant because it allowed him to open it up to musicians, to actually start musicians, artists, like what have you. So he, in his interest in also being a community space, would open it up to artists that needed to. Of course, he would charge, but it was minimal. And actually, that's how we connected. So I connected with him, always known each other. The DC art space is small. But I reached out to him when I was on the committee for the first renewed music summit. So the DC Music Summit done by Dior Ashley Brown. she invited me to sit on the committee. I have a lot of ties in the music space, and that was a really amazing experience to be able to like reach out to folks and be given the opportunity to build out my own panel discussions, right? And so one of my ideas was to have a discussion on the venue, because I think it's so important for artists to really understand the perspective of the venue. So if you're a smaller artist and you're coming into the music space for the first time, you need to understand how to communicate with the venue, what the venue's looking for, what the opportunity is. Are they going to pay you, or are you doing this pro bono? What size audience do you need to bring in yourself to be a viable artist to perform somewhere? And so the concept on the panel was small venue all the way to relatively bigger venue in DC, which would be, I personally think 930 Club is like the big small venue here, right? Outside of Merriweather and those big spaces, the 930 family, if you will. So Lincoln Theater and 930 Club, like those places are, if you hit those, you're doing well, right? But you got to start somewhere. So I think Small Wooden Box was a great venue to open up, like, can you bring 50 people into a room, 45, 50 people into a room, right? And then you build yourself into then the next level, which might be at a Songbird or like, right? And then it's like a small crawl up to get yourself to the 930 Club, to get invited to the 930 Club as a local artist. So I invited him, I called him up and I was like, hey, you want to sit on this panel? And then I invited Reem, who is he's a manager at 930 Club, also a good friend. And then we all connected. I think they met through that engagement, and everybody wanted to kind of stay in touch. And I had this idea because Jamon was like, I need to promote Small Wooden Box so that more people rent this space. And I have a marketing background, so I was like, concept marketing is perfect. Like, we'll just do an event there that broadcasts out to the general public, and that gives you more awareness. It brings more awareness to the public that the space is here. So it came from that. So it served a lot of purposes. And then, of course, I had to call Reem, and I was like, you know your way around this space, so let's go, let's do this. And I'm just lucky to know some really amazing people in this city, because then I called up Jasonic, who is kind of like pioneered a little bit in the Facebook Live space, right? Like, he knew that space inside and out, so called him to fulfill that part of it. We worked with another group whose name I'm not going to mention because I don't know, we're not like really associated with them anymore, so I don't know if they're still even in production, but it was essentially a camera crew that came in, and that was serendipitous. That just kind of happened. They did an event through somebody else at Small Wooden Box, and we're like, oh, we'd be into shooting for this. So we had like professional level production with 3 camera angles, and like, that's unheard of, and that was fantastic. That was
at that time.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Or just to have this like random small idea, and then have all the like so many people just come and start saying, I want to do this with you. I want to do this with you. We had Mundo Mio. He goes by a different DJ name that I cannot remember, but Tristan Mundo Mio, he's amazing. He's my little brother. And he came in and became our house DJ. So we would start every show with a little DJ set, get people pumped up and ready. And he's great at that. So, yeah, just like everybody coming. Like I said, Sneak Shot came, started taking the photos. Like, it just came together beautifully. And we could not do any of it without that team. And, I would call us the leadership kind of team was Jamon Johnson and Kareem Khalifa and me. And our kind of, our rapport with each other was fantastic. Like, just working with these guys was so easy, so seamless. We took it seriously. Everybody was serious. A meeting once a week. We did a show every other week. We did 2 shows a month, which is a lot more work than people think. There's so much work involved.
Tell me about that work.
So I was kind of, I'm not trying to gender role, but as the female in the group, I was the one kind of like taking the lead on a lot of stuff. And I am lucky to have been in the space back when I was like in my early 20s. I did this. I produced shows. I put stuff together. So it was kind of like riding a bike. I just had to get back on the bike and like learn the wheels again and just, okay, cool, let's do this. And through my work, I've just been connected with a lot of musicians. So I would call up my musician friends that were local musicians. We had an incredible run, right? We did 8 shows kind of 8 show segments. So we take a break between every 8 show and actually iterated our concept each time we renewed the show. But like what happens in behind the scenes, you're making a lot of phone calls. You're talking to the artist. Our first and foremost, we would identify the artist, identify their date, and then talk to them. What do you want? How do you want this to look? Like, what's your ideal concert scenario? And
warm lighting, cold lighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did, what was fun about it too was learning. We all rotated our jobs, not every time, but many times we would rotate our jobs that we had. Generally, each of us had a space. Like Reem did the interviews. As if anybody's seen the show, you would know Reem would do a quick 20-minute interview with the artist. So that was very deliberate. We had decided when the 3 of us got together and said, we're going to do this. It was actually why I called Reem, because Reem is an orator. I think he's like really fantastic and asks great questions and just has a good stage presence. So I was like, I want people to get to know these artists, not just their music, right? I want them to know what inspired them and what motivated them into this direction and what their music is about, what it means to them. And so that was probably my favorite part of the series, is like just this quick 15-20 minute interview with the artist. So Reem had to do his homework. He had to call them ahead of time, ask them some, prelim questions. What do you want the public to know about you? Just to guide and inform his question asking. And then we continued with, again, the set design. That was like more Jamon's space because he's more of the visual person. So he was responsible for set design. And then I kind of led the rest of the team, like lighting, videography, the live stream, all of that. So I would have to coordinate with everybody else, make sure that everybody shows up on time, everybody's there on the right date, like as I'm doing all those logistics. And then we would just kind of rotate. So I got to learn about lighting because I was responsible for lighting one night, or learn about audio, or learn about how the live stream works. And we all just it was a phenomenal learning opportunity. And the live streaming thing is a whole new concept, right? I mean,
at that time.
Yeah. You say at that time, because now it's like nothing to people. Yeah. Instagram didn't have a live component, and syncing Instagram with Facebook, with Twitch, all of that. It was so complicated, and we had to figure out every time we iterated, every time we learned something new, and we tried to make it better. Which was
Did you guys ever have a notebook that would have instructions for anyone else? Like, hey,
like a playbook? Yeah. I wish. No, not really. A lot of it lived in our heads. But again, because every show was a learning curve, every single show. So today, if you asked me to sit down and just put a little playbook together of what we did, I could do that. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It was a little more free flowing. I guess that would feel a little more prescriptive to me, you
guys did have a skeletal crew when
we had a skeletal
things were functioning.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so, yeah, and it was also about giving our, the broader team, it was about giving the broader team a autonomy, right? So okay, the production crew, you guys tell us what you want to do. How does this work for you? So we weren't necessarily, I was simply there to just make sure logistics were going and people were showing up on time. And otherwise it's I very much respect your understanding of the craft of this part of what you do. You lead the way here. So I had to learn before I could put anything down on paper. And I mean, it was always us, we were always there, but we lost the big crew after, I think, our second series of shows. We lost because we weren't paying them. They wanted to say, gotta go on something. The world started to open up a little bit more, so we were contending.
Let's pause right here. So,
okay.
How fast did the world open up for you guys?
That's a really good question. It happened quicker than we thought, but we pivoted nicely, I think.
Yeah.
We were, so it was mask up. You can't be in this room without a mask because it's a small space. Can't be in the room without a mask. There's no external audience. There's just the artist and our crew. And that was it. And it was cool because getting out to people over Twitch and Facebook was a little easier because people aren't going anywhere. That's what they're doing. Nowadays, it's like to catch people on live. It's a little trickier. And then the second iteration, things started to open up slowly. We had to kind of catch up to that. And so then we allowed a small audience because to perform, there is something about having that audience. And we did see a dip in viewership when we live streamed. So we're like, okay, we need some more hype in here. I want an audience. So we kept it to like 10, 15 hand-picked people. It was invite only. And then they came and gave an audience, which just like, I'm not going to say it changed the energy, just transformed the energy. It was just another version of energy that was amazing. Like our small skeletal crew, when it was just all of us, we were all also just like exciting people and everybody had a good energy. So we were the hype men. But then bringing in these like 10, 15 people just brought a whole renewed energy into the space. And it wasn't on us to hype the artists up. Now it's on the audience, hype the artists up. So I got to get the audience hype. That was my job. I did the announcements at the beginning, get everybody energized. Mundo's on the ones and twos, just like throwing music out there that's getting people excited. And then the energy once the show started was always fantastic. And people loved the concept. So that was fun. And then the third iteration was, let's open it up to more people. Then we were up to like 35 people. Like things had opened up, things were safer. You didn't have to mask up. We thought about how do we monetize this? Because once the world opened up, artists
changed the dynamic.
Changed it so much. Yeah. And it was like, how do we pay them? Like now we're competing with this actual market, right? Where people are actually paying artists and we're not ever trying to short an artist. We were trying to barter in the ways that we thought, hey, this is a resource we have. We're going to give that to you. You perform.
And did this apply for newer artists that were coming on or just artists in general? And the reason I ask this question is, you created a space and a place for the artist to exist when there was no demand or placement for the artists. So why does the world opening up now turn into we have to find a way to pay these people versus, well, we've done a good job building the relationship with them, so let's schedule them for days they don't have shows or they're not looking for opportunities, and the trade-off would be putting their persona and craft out there.
And I agree with you. Somehow it just didn't pan out that way. Folks want to get paid, period. You know, and they felt like because we're inviting you, because you're not calling me and saying, hey, I want to perform on the show, because we're inviting you. Like I would just be on Instagram all the time, just looking at new artists, local artists, pinging from like, oh, I know this artist, and then see who they might feature on something or on their Instagram. I was like all kinds of rabbit holes trying to find new artists. Because it was also very important to note that there was no one genre.
Many genres.
Every genre. And I wanted it, and it was like almost curated, if you will. Like I was like, okay, we've done the alt R&B thing, we've done the rock thing, we've done like the baseline stuff. Now it's time to. One of my favorite shows is taking a friend of mine that's a saxophonist and pairing him together with another friend who sings more like alt R&B-ish music, and saying, hey, do you guys? He's going to open for you. You're going to be the headliner. Is there anywhere where you can play together, right? And do some kind of like jam session type style thing. That ended up being so fun. And when you put stuff together like that, I can't give you my most educated answer because I didn't do a lot of research around it, but it was really interesting to me that a lot of people were like, they just didn't take it as seriously once the world opened up. And they weren't, if you're not paying them, then there was a lot of flakiness. There was a lot of, oh, well, I can do it here, I can do it there, you know what I mean? And if you're not paying them, you just kind of lose that control that you might have over it otherwise.
And that also hurts your momentum.
It hurts our momentum.
In terms of what this could have been, because technically, from my opinion, if you don't mind, you could have built this to become a nonprofit and be funded by the city itself. And I'm very sure there may have been opportunities for you to do that.
So many. And I'll tell you, after three runs, like 3 of those 8 series runs, I was exhausted. It was like really, and then my day job started picking up. Reem was back to work. Reem was also not working. Jamon was in the retail business.
Yeah.
Reem's in the music business.
So
everybody's going back to work.
Becoming separated too.
The core team is getting busy with real life coming back into play. My kids are now back in school. There's so many things happening that I was like,
And they're glowing.
and they're growing, and to keep its integrity, we had to pause. It doesn't mean that it's not going to pop back up. Like, keep your eyes open, folks, because it's going to pop back up, right? Like, something will happen. We were actually invited to take the show on the road. So we were invited by some folks to do outside. So take our concept and bring it to another venue. That was really fun. We did two versions of that.
What was the expectancy of taking the show on the road for you guys versus the people that invited you on the road?
Can we do it?
Yeah.
Like, can we just bring this concept and just move it over? And it can be easier sometimes because now you have another venue. A venue is asking us, and they have a little bit maybe more of a professional setup. It's an actual venue.
Yeah.
So we had that on our side. Can we fill the room? You know, can we call enough people up to come to this show? And the idea of partnering, collaborating with another organization, generally like a community-based venue.
Side note.
Yeah.
If you want, for the bigger parts, you can use the bigger brush.
Oh.
Because the little brush is more for details, but that might be who you are, old school wise. Like, hey, you use the toothbrush, you got some spit and some soap, and we get it done.
You clearly know me. Literally. Soap and then toothbrush. Actually, I just came up on those. What are those things of the face? Big Daddy or something it's called? It's got like a little sponge that has a face on it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
They have like the already made. I've been using that lately, and I'm like, whoa, that works. I clean these guys. Believe it or not, I clean these guys like once every 2 weeks,
Really?
and they still look like.
Well, that's just, well, I mean, that's, you know, the Anacostia side.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you're
A lot of South Coast on these
Yeah,
shoes.
you're close to her. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just shows your willingness to, you're not busy by choice. You're busy by, hey, this needs to get done.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is very true. That's well said too. And I'm not scared to get dirty.
See how I said, hey, you can use the big brush and you went
And I'm
right
still
to brush.
so I was like, this feels like a buffer to me. This feels like one of these numbers.
No, what you're thinking of is dress shoes. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Because once you did that wide swipe, that's
That's a dress shoe to me.
That's all polished.
Yeah. Because actually, when you told me to bring the shoe, I didn't know if it was sneakers, because Reem said sneakers, so then I had that in my head.
You could bring any shoe, but when I woke up is when I saw your text.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's Saturday. Any shoe.
Any shoe.
Any shoe. But let's go with a sneaker. It's Saturday.
But you said shoes that mean something to me, and I have a pair of Doc Martens that are like my joint, but they're hard to clean. Doc Martens are like hard to clean, but they're just,
Well, no. The process for Doc Martens is different.
totally different.
But it's necessary. That's your story.
I do it.
Yeah.
I do it all the time, and I love those guys.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but back to what you were saying with working in other venues and being invited out of town.
Yeah, being invited. It was in town. It was in DC. It was Union Market. Remember? It was the disco ball place. Taking pictures. We got invited to that. That was super fun.
It was.
That was really, really, really fun to collaborate with them.
Period in time.
Another period in time, and they were closing. They were like really just trying to run it. They knew they were closing, and they were like, we want to do as much exciting programming.
Yeah.
And Lauren Gaye, who's very much instrumental in pushing us, and she was
Now has her own fashion spot at Union Market, right?
exactly, or she does their merchandising,
Yeah.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Flakey.
The panel that I had, there was like 5 venues represented in the panel that again ran from like Smallwood and box size all the way to 930 size. Songbird was in there.
Yeah.
7 Drum City was in there. Like there was representation that represented the crawl, right? Like the move,
Move up, level
yeah,
up.
level
You just want a representation for each level.
each level
of capacity.
And
Yeah.
it was one of the most highly attended sessions, and it was amazing to me to see that, because I was selling this idea to the team. I was like, I love the idea of having the perspective of the venue. It's such a big part of performing. It's such a big part for musicians, right? It's like, where am I going to perform? You can't become a musician and automatically think that 930 Club's going to book you, right? You need if you're, how do you build relationships with a small wooden box to then build a relationship at the next level, to then build a relationship at the next level? And hearing it from the mouths of the people who run those venues, I think was so impactful for people. And learning, and that's what I'm saying, like, yeah, you can book a gig, you can have a good relationship, but are you learning how to move to the next step?
Also, another point that was really important that around the time I took over booking, no one was really marketing the artist correctly through the venues.
Your point exactly was like venues feel like you need to market your own show. You need to bring your value. You need to fill this room. But I would notice all the time, like venues, we spent so much time with Small Wooden Box concert series promoting the show, promoting the artist, doing some outside marketing, like other things the artist does, or like whatever, like just snippets from past shows and whatever, and like just pulling it all together to promote that artist and say, we're gonna fill the room. But I mean, the circumstance was different, of course, because it was COVID, and it was like, I would let the artists have maybe 3 or 4 guests. Yeah. Would fill it up with the rest because it was hard to trust who's gonna come in.
But the thought process is the same.
It's the same. It's
same
exactly
thought process. You were executing what venue should have been executing better. And the reason I could say that is, I remember when Devin is the reason Velvet Lounge has an Instagram.
Yeah.
We both don't have access to it anymore. That's why it's just dead space now.
Right.
When we took over, when he started it, he's really good from the art perspective, and I'm really good for the interaction perspective.
Yeah.
What do the parties look like? What do we have going on?
Right.
The flyers, DJs. I started bringing in DJs, like your boy.
Yeah.
I brought him in there, and I gave him his first Tuesday. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So when you said it, that's why I was like, I knew exactly who you was talking about,
Do you know
right?
Todd Mack? I was going to Velvet probably before you were born. But Todd Mack was a really good friend of mine. I was just kidding.
I was going to say.
It was weird.
I thought about it. I was like, nah, I don't know.
No,
about that one. Yeah.
I'm like, I was doing this before you were born. But I was going to Velvet, like, I want to say, it was before I had kids, before I was married, before like so many, I was probably 19, 19, 20, no, it had to be.
Like 2004, 2005?
Yeah, it had to be, because my daughter was born in 2007.
Yeah, you see how I'm good with the years. I know, I'm like,
Even before that, it was like, it had to be 2000, 2002.
So that was around the time that they opened.
And Todd Mack was one of the DJs, and he was also in a band. You know John Lang?
I know
the
him.
drummer.
Yeah,
that's my homie, and he's the one who put me on. I would always go, like, he would DJ on Fridays or whatever, so I would go to see him.
Yeah. What was their group name again when they were DJing?
No, he had a band. When, you know John Lang, the drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was John Lang, him, and one other person that I can't remember. But he was also a DJ.
Okay.
So he would DJ on some nights, but there were some nights, that was my first time going upstairs. I didn't even know upstairs existed.
Yeah, that was when it was real rock bands, and they were kicking people out. It was real rock bands. Those metal days, the things that are going on now. Okay, all right, cool. And what that establishment was before compared to what it is now.
Yes.
And that's the most polite way to put it. Because I mean, I've always made sure, hey, if I'm going to work here, I need to know the history and understand what they were before I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Velvet, what I loved about Velvet was it was a place for, and I mean this respectfully, for the kids to go.
It was.
Like, I was, I'm an old DC, like, I've been in DC for a long, long time. Older than a lot of people might think because I look young.
Yeah.
And I've experienced music in so many iterations, versions in DC. I've seen DC grow, like, in the music scene.
Yeah.
And I loved going to Velvet and just seeing these kids, like, that alternative kid, that kid come to life, that they didn't belong anywhere else, and they came here and there's family here, and to see their faith, like, they walk in, it was always love, and it was always chill, and it was always like everybody's so sweet. But these were, like, in my opinion, young kids. Like, when I started going to Velvet, then when you were working there and I would go there, the second iteration, my second wind of Velvet was just seeing these, like, kids and loving their style, their, like, and they're like, and the different DJs that you had and the different types of music that there was like a very unique establishment.
You always looked amazed. That was the funny part for me. I remember anytime you'd come through, you always looked amazed.
Yeah, it was always great. It was always great. It was always fun. I have so many velvet stories. It's insane. That's for another day.
I got you.
But yeah, we were talking about
Lauren Gaye.
Lauren Gaye, and how awesome she is, and how she really just like loved our concept and really wanted to put us on and put us into that disco ball joint. And it was a great collaboration. And we were like, okay, we can do this. But again, it was at a time where we all just started getting really busy with our real life stuff.
Were you guys aware of how the world opening up and your lives getting busy again was affecting the product of the small one box series?
Yep.
Were there ever meetings about it, or could you just feel everyone just knew, oh, we may have to put a button in this soon?
I think we all just knew.
Yeah.
Part of it was, is this for public consumption or not? I don't know. Part of it was that me and one of my partners were in a relationship that started to slowly stop being a relationship and just be a beautiful friendship, and it was lovely. And we're still very close. We live together, but that took us a little bit of strain. That strained a little bit. Like I say it every time: do not date anybody you work with. Like it just doesn't work. But it was beautiful at first. It was like, oh my God, we're doing this together. This is amazing. Just meet us closer. And then it was like slowly when the relationship started to have a little bit of issues, then it was like, oh well, I don't want to talk to you today, so I don't want to be on this meeting, or like whatever, stuff like that would happen. So that was a part of it. I mean, I think we've cleared that strain now, and we could probably do the show again if we wanted to, and we work really well together regardless.
Would that work for everybody else's dynamic that was involved team-wise, or?
We kept it out of that space, but we were really mature about it. I mean, I have had my time where I dated people I work with, and I was so immature, it was ridiculous, and I would be like, but we were so in sync with each other that it was like, this does not belong here. And that was my baby. And I would say, hey, nothing about you and I is gonna affect this. Like it made me so happy doing that show, and it just brought so much life back to me. Like it just, being a mom for so long, and like, now my kids are older. Now I actually have time to go back into it. I stopped doing it because I got pregnant. So now my kids are old enough where I can just do this again and pour my heart into it.
Is that a new shoe or the same shoe?
It's the other side.
Okay, cool. I didn't know, because I was like, we do have another shoe to clean. I didn't know if we cleaned it or not, because it would be weird if you have one shoe that's super clean and another one that's dirty.
That's why when you walked out, I was like, I'm gonna start cleaning the other one.
Yeah, just gotta ask these questions.
Now I feel like this is good, right?
No, compare them. Just put it right on camera. It's side by side. Which one did you clean first?
I cleaned this one first.
Okay.
This one's soup's clean.
Okay. Hey, let me see that one. Yeah, that
probably give this some work. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Back and body.
I didn't know we were inspecting. I didn't know they were a critic.
Keep going, though. I'm listening.
Yeah, I feel like I wanted to go back to that part about how we got the name Small Box. I was saying that Jamon had that. He had that brand already.
Textile and Apparel.
Textile. He started apparel later. It was really mostly textile selling. Made a lot of great partnerships around the city and sold his stuff. Still has great stuff. Like when you interview him, tell him to bring his materials. Tell him to bring his stuff, because super impressive.
Including relationships like folks, it's from the soul.
Yeah. So traditions from the soul. They're good friends. It's from the Soul is a great nonprofit that puts shoes on people's feet who otherwise couldn't do it themselves.
I was wondering why the dynamics on the sneakers were off, and it's because you moved the table with your leg being up. No, you're good. I just got to fix the camera. I was like, something is different. Just lift the shoe up a little bit more. Perfect. Thank you.
Where are you seeing it from?
3 cameras. Remember, you got 3 angles on you. Yeah.
Like, where are you seeing the feed? Like, how are you seeing what's on camera?
Oh, I'm just looking at the cameras directly.
Oh,
yeah. So the screen.
Your screen is there. I couldn't see that. I was
moving them around the front of the screens. Yeah.
Yeah, the 3 camera angles. That's so important. That's something I learned on the series.
Well, it depends on what the concept is.
It sure does. Well, Small One Box. Anyway, so he had that textile brand, and then started referring to his space as he started to, I don't know if you remember the band Champion Sound, Gudo.
Yeah.
And all of them, Gudo, John Jazz, Anastasia.
What a great lineup of
what a great, I still have one of their records. Love them. They started practicing in that space because Anna and Jamon were dating, and so they started practicing. And she lived there, so they started practicing in that space. And I think that evolved into let's do a show here, and then let's invite other people to do shows. And so that was already establishing. That space was already like primed to be a space where we could do these concerts and whatever. And so he started referring to the space itself as Small Wooden Box. And then when we sat around and we started to like bring the concept to life, we were like, what do we call it? And it was just like, we went through all these different names. I wish I will find that notebook where I wrote our brainstorming down.
Yeah.
Went through all these names just to land on Small Wooden Box Concert Series. But it was funny because the iteration then, Small Wooden Box Concert Series, takes so long to say.
That's why when you said it earlier, I was like, oh, that's 5.
Yeah, Small Wooden Box Concert Series. And can you imagine typing it every time I had to like do something on Instagram where I don't have a computer? Small Wooden Box Concert Series, it's too long. So we changed it to SWB Concert Series. So now where it exists, where it sits now is SWB Concert Series. But maybe when I say it, I would say Small Wooden Box on the first iteration. Or on the first mention, I would say Small Wooden Box Concert Series. And then any mention after would be SWB Concert Series.
How was it having peers like NPR Tiny Desk?
Having peers like?
Yeah.
Like, being in that space?
Yeah, when you think of...
So many people call us the Tiny Box Concert Series. So many people mix us up. It's so funny. And I've now had the privilege, I have a very good friend that works for NPR, and they've gotten invited to quite a few shows now in this summer. And I see a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities. It's just that basic setup, you know, like really baseline stuff. I mean, of course, they're way more advanced than we are, but like...
Well, the budget's different.
The budget's really different.
And the access is different.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And for NPR, that was a layer NPR needed of what are we as a company when it comes to public broadcasting.
Yes.
But for what you guys did, I think that was a very important culture moment, which was a really good follow-up to the Don't Mute DC movement.
Yes.
Which is really important, and I think that's understated.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that had a lot to do with the Don't Mute DC, and honestly, and I'll let Jamon talk more about this when you talk with him, but a big part of having to end things and then that not being a viable venue anymore was what I saw as gentrification, right? Because he had a neighbor complain about sound and I mean, and this is, or about not sound, because again, it was a carriage house, so it sat by itself, which made it great for that. It was like trash or kids walking in and out, you know, like there were shows that were done by like, I can't think right now of the different groups that have done shows there, but there were so many young artists that were doing shows there. And so seeing young Black kids walking in and out of the house was like problematic to people. And they're like, oh, it's too much traffic. This is not zoned for business and blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's part of the Don't Mute DC. It's like, why are you... You're muting expression. You're impeding these young children from having these opportunities. I say children, that's too young. These young adults from having these experiences and this opportunity in a safe space. Yeah. In a safe space. This is a safe space.
Adults don't want kids to have a safe space.
It's so silly.
Adults only want kids to do what's told. But being a kid has never been about listening to what adults have to say and instructions.
Yep.
And then when you complain and say, well, these kids have nothing to do, that looks perfect. When you complain and you say these kids have nothing to do, then it comes down to, well, when the kids did have something to do, the fact that you just put your whole face in the camera is hilarious. I looked at every camera and I was like, her face is in every camera right now.
He just wants the boobs.
But when the kids did have something to do, or someone made something for the kids to do, it's now a complaint. And this is going to be an extreme. That's why we're having all this stuff that's happening on U Street and in DC now, because first the programs are taken away from the kids, right? than the programs that would support the kids' families when it comes to like food in the house, bills getting taken care of and everything else. And now the kids are doing what they think is getting it out the mud, which is robbery, breaking into cars, vandalism, all this other stuff. But even the kids who decided, hey, I can't do that anymore, what is left?
Where do you go? So I literally...
And it can't just be the YMCA.
It's not. It's not going to be the YMCA.
It's not fair, yeah.
And it's...
And don't tell them just play a sport, because that's wild.
That's insane. And also sporting, that doesn't take up the whole evening or whatever. And like the weekends. And then...
When they go home, they're going to be hungry.
I was literally... That part. And I was literally... looking for something to do for my son's birthday, right? My son's birthday is this weekend. We decided we wanted to do something in the city because my brother and Jamon are both going to join us and we're all in the city. So it's like, let's find something to do in the city because I'm raising my kids in Rockville, Maryland, and long story, but whatever, I'm raising them in Rockville, Maryland. There's a lot more to do in the suburbs. There's a lot more for kids to do in the suburbs, although it's harder to get to for the kids by themselves. And we know that DC is predominantly latchkey kids, predominantly kids that are whose parents work, and so these kids are taking public transportation.
It's just built for young adults.
Yeah, that's it.
Young adults and adults.
So I'm looking for like bowling, arcades, whatever. Everything after 8 p.m. becomes 18 and older.
It's a dead zone.
18 and older.
18 and over, only 21 and up.
21 and up. Some are 18 and over, but many are 21 and up, and they're alcohol infused, and like everything is like just all surrounded around alcohol consumption.
References the Keith Lee breakdown when he said, hey, a lot of these restaurants aren't doing all that well because they're based around alcohol first and food second.
Yep.
And a lot of people is like, oh, don't come to my city, don't say that. But it's like, guys, that's what the industry has always been built on.
Said. Yeah.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
A lot of people know this. DC's food market, and I think a lot of people are conflating high-end dinners, food, with like, hey, ordinary everyday food. And the issue when you look at DC is, realistically speaking, we don't have a great food option for the ordinary person. We have good, don't get me wrong, and we have a little bit above average, but how many places can you say, oh, this is amazing at this price?
Yeah, food-wise. Yeah. And I know that, and that's why we just, just coming off
Except for the Jamaican spots. The Jamaican spots are killing it right now. They've taken a step up in the last 3 years. They've gotten better. Angry Jerk, shout out to them. And Jerk at Night. You know what I'm saying? They're doing it well.
We're not either.
Yeah, no, both. I got some in my fridge right now.
Oh, I gotta check that out. Angry Jerk.
Yeah, they're right around the corner from
I
it.
feel like I might have had Angry Jerk the other day.
They're the ones that does the taco spots, like the fusion of it, but they do a good blend. Whoever's in the kitchen, I know the cultures are actually there. And it's not someone that's smashing things together.
Right.
Not saying this as Jamaican on both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
So wait, I was telling you that my son's choice for tonight for dinner was Wonderland. Shout out to Wonderland Ballroom. I don't know why I looked in the camera. Shout out to Wonderland Ballroom. I love that place, and I love that they make it a cool place to, if you're sitting outside, you can bring your kids. And my kids have grown up. I've been going to Wonderland Ballroom since before I had my kids, and the owners are family to me, and like my kids and all of our kids, they were doing like happy hours that let you bring your kids so that kids can play together, like this made a really conducive space for parents.
But that's a DC restriction. That's not an establishment restriction, unfortunately.
But I can't take my kid to the bar.
Oh, no, I get that.
Right.
I get that. Yeah.
To the bar.
Yeah.
But I can bring them into, if you're serving food, my kid can be any age, but some places aren't conducive to that.
Yeah.
And to welcome it, like they poo-poo on it. They look at you with your kid at the place and they're like, why you bring your kid here? But it also restricts the parents from having a freaking life.
It does.
Right? Like for so long, you just can't have a life.
Yeah.
Because your kids are too young to go with you to this place where you just want to meet up with some friends and catch up.
Oh, if it was that simple. Yeah.
And it sucks. And my kids have grown up.
What kind of shoes are they? We just switched. We didn't even say what they are. What kind of shoes are they?
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, wow. Hold up.
I thought you'd get to it eventually.
No. I just realized.
So these are my first pair of Stan Smiths that I've ever.
Really? Okay, tell us about
they've been
this.
sitting in my closet really dirty, and I'm like, I gotta clean them because I like wearing them, and they're great shoe for me to wear with like dresses and stuff. It's just a comfortable ass shoe. But I always wanted that. I always wanted Stan Smiths. I would see them on other people, and I'm not even kidding. I used to interchange Stan Smiths with Stacey Adams because I wouldn't know what I was talking about because I'm like not a sneaker person.
Well, that's what education is. That's what education is for.
And Stan Smiths and, if you know Stacey Adams, are very different shoes. So I bought my first pair of Stan Smiths like a few years ago, and this is them. And I think they're still in great condition just overall. They're just dirty, they're just a dirty white shoe now. Yeah. But I love that. I love them. And you said bring a pair of shoes that are like meaningful. Yeah. God, I rocked these hard for a long time. I rocked these hard, and they're still in such good condition, so they're like good quality shoe. And this is what I meant when I said Jamon influenced me in saying like, hey, you got to just spend a little money and get a good shoe. Get a good shoe, and it'll rock with you for a while. Yeah. And so they've just been staring at me in my closet saying, clean up, honey. Please. So, and you said bring something that means something to you.
Please, clean me. Please, for the love of God.
I don't deserve this. So here I am cleaning my Stan Smiths.
So what makes an everyday shoe an everyday shoe?
I mean, comfort.
Okay.
I think I make an everyday shoe an everyday shoe because I don't have like 30 pairs of shoes.
How many shoes do you have?
I would say...
It looks over.
I know, right? See, I don't have nothing like that. I could line up... I probably have 5 pairs of sneakers that are all in active rotation. Yeah. I have probably 4 pairs of sneakers that are like those, like I went to 2 sneaker balls, so I had to buy a pair of sneakers for the sneaker ball to like wear something snazzy. I've got like my Jordans that I don't take out a lot.
What's a sneaker ball?
Oh, the sneaker ball is when you get super dressed up and then you wear sneakers. Okay. So you're wearing like black tie attire or cocktail attire, and then you rock some sneakers with it. Some kicks.
I never listened to it.
Super fun. Yeah. I don't know when the last time they did one. I did one. Farrah Fawcett was DJing at Warren, and so she invited me to come to Warren, and that was really cool. That was super fun. Yeah, you just get dressed up and then you throw on kicks with it. And I love it. I mean, that's what the kids are doing anyway now. Like, they do that anyway, but there was a time where that wasn't a thing, and like, you want to rock your sneakers while all dressed up. Yeah, so I think...
sounds dope.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about it, so you should ask somebody else for more details, but it was a fun concept, and I love it. And so, yeah, I bought a pair of, like, these really cute Jordans that have like almost like the red of your shorts, but more orangey. Okay. Patent leather around there, and then or like just that shiny.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Vinyl, whatever. Yeah. I'll take a picture and send them to you. I always brought those, but they're so clean because I don't wear them.
I keep them clean.
I actually wore them because I wear them. I don't wear them often. I wore them. I volunteered at Sundress Fest, which is a Wonderland
all the guys
fundraiser. The men wear sundresses. The men and women wear sundresses, and it's a fundraiser for the last few years. They've been raising money for DC Central Kitchen, which is, I think, a really, really great cause to raise money for. Yeah. And they asked me to be a beer girl, and whatever dress I was wearing, I was like, oh, these shoes look so cute with this, I'm gonna wear them. Not thinking that I'm a beer girl, so now I'm like opening beers all over my shoe. Like, my shoes, they kind of got a little bit messed up, but they were so clean already that I just had to wipe them down, and they were fine. So I didn't bring those to clean, but those are probably another favorite.
I got you.
Yeah, so everyday sneaker for me, I don't have a lot. I don't need a lot. I just want them to be comfortable and cute. Yeah, and make my feet look cute, that's all.
I got you.
Set off my outfit.
How would you say you treat yourself in comparison to the everyday sneaker?
Such a great question. What? I think I treat myself the same way I treat my everyday sneakers. I wear them out, and then I toss them to the side at the end of the day. There's very little self-care happening here. But no, that's actually a really great question, and what I just said, my answer is right. It's how I was once upon a time. I would say like a year or two ago, I would treat my sneakers poorly. I didn't clean them often. I ran through them all day. They were my prized possession because they were great for my feet. Like, I like to wear sneakers more than any other type of shoe.
Yeah.
I need a comfortable shoe, essentially. And sneakers the way. And more recently, I think in the last 2 years, I've been learning how to treat myself better. And I think that that has manifested into treating the things around me better, keeping my shoes clean. I told you I'd clean those. I would never, 2 years ago, would never sit with a toothbrush and clean my shoe, right? I now, once every 2 weeks, and I'm like, with my shoes, just to make it look clean. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's stains all over these joints. Funny side story, one night was like, I was probably hungover or something, and I was eating like, I can't believe I was saying this on camera. I was eating, I eat dairy-free ice cream, which sounds gross, but it's actually really good. I was eating some chocolate ice cream, and right out the pint, like, just hungover, probably sad about something. I don't know what happened, stressed out, anxious about something, I can't remember. And I was just being a mess. And I recall my sneakers were right by my bedside because I was supposed to go work out, but I decided to eat this pint of ice cream instead. And I dropped a trickle of ice cream fell onto the sneaker because I was like putting it away or something. A trickle of ice cream, and I left it there for weeks to remind myself not to live that way. I was like, don't. And that little trickle of chocolate ice cream on my sneaker, the tip of my sneaker, it did that. It worked. It was just a reminder. I looked down and I'm like, you can't do that again. Like, you gotta get up and go work out. Like, you cannot get stuck in an ice cream pint and not do the things you do to take care of yourself, you know, no matter how you're feeling. So that was funny. I actually did that, and it worked.
That's a great story. That's a damn good story. When it comes to the small wooden box concert series, what are 2 things you think could have been done better?
The marketing. I was responsible for the marketing, and I am my own worst critic, right? Obviously, we all are. But I was like, it was really hard for me because I'm not an Instagram person. I'm not a social media person. It takes
a lot.
Much.
It takes a lot.
So much. I had come off. I was in a relationship prior. That was not a good one. I think you might know the person who worked and talk about it, but I had to come off of Instagram to just erase that relationship from my, or just get better, just to heal. And social media, when you're healing, is just not a good space, right? Unless used very deliberately and very intelligently. And that's hard. Very few people use social media intelligently and deliberately. So I came off. And then when I started the concert series, I was like, dang, I got to get back on because I got to start promoting myself, promoting the show. I need to have a presence. I need people to want to reach out to me. I need to have like a following, because you're calling an artist saying, hey, you want to do this thing? And you have 11 followers, mama. Like, what are you going to do for me? You know, like, so I'm like, I got to beef this thing up again. And that's part of show business now. Like, it is social media. If you think you can run shows or do anything and not have a social media presence, it ain't gonna work, right? Especially depending on your audience and the age of your audience.
Unless you have a great email list.
Unless you have an amazing email list and you don't, and the artist is not interested in co-branding or you know, like sharing that responsibility of advertising the show and advertising post-show and like being able to, like, I want to do a thing where we do a reel just kind of highlighting some of our great shows, and, you know, like being able to do all that stuff is super important.
Or in the future, having a recap of how you felt about how great these shows were.
Exactly.
And how much of a blessing that was working with those artists.
Exactly. And we still have an active SWB concert series handle on Instagram. And people still, you know, it's active. Like, people still engage. I was doing a little bit of content where, like, just, you know, posting other things about other musicians and like just trying to make it a place where people could land and learn about the music scene in DC and in general. It was a lot of work. And then it had me on Instagram, which can also be toxic for me. Like, I don't have like the best relationship with social media. So I had to learn to really compartmentalize and really separate any personal interest in social media or other people's stories or whatever, and know that this is about business. I got to do this for business. And that was just a really interesting process, right? And so to answer your question, I wasn't that great at it. And I was constantly looking for like an intern or somebody, like a young person, my own daughter. I'm like, you have to be good at this. Like, please, can you do this for me? Nobody wanted to do it. No. And I couldn't find anybody that wanted to invest.
How hard it was. Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
And what makes it worse is not only is it hard, but a lot of these bigger businesses advertise it as something that the intern should be able to do, and their execs can't even.
Gaye, no one's teaching them.
Can't really do it.
No one's teaching them. No one's taking the care to create a safe space there, because, like I said, you get really caught into the, oh my God, I only got 50 likes. Oh my God, I'm not doing this right. Like, it was constant. I was constantly putting pressure on myself. Like, why did my friend like this post that this other person sent, but I put up this post about small wooden box? My friends aren't supporting me. Like, I was going through all this like spirally shit because social media is like such a popularity game, right?
Let's talk about that spiral.
Oh yeah, I see what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. So there.
Social media and running a small business on the advertisement side. When you said there's not a safe space being made there, describe that to me.
We know that there's a clear straight line between social media and mental health, right? And the impact of mental health by social media, the popularity game that social media has created, I'll even go as far as like, social media has created a space where you can watch people without being seen watching people. That's a dangerous space, right? Yeah. You can use Finstas, you can use, if Small Wooden Box wasn't under my name, so I could use it to like look at somebody else's profile without them knowing. Like, I didn't do that, but I could do that, and it was like, it's an option, and it was a tempting option a handful of times in my life.
People don't manage themselves well.
People don't manage themselves well. Yeah. People have a hard time not succumbing to those cravings, and it's so easy that way, right? Like, they've just made it so easy. And to just that number watch alone makes such an impact on your self-worth, and like,
man, I check the numbers on the likes 2 days later.
Yeah.
I don't. I tell folks the most important thing, there's 3 rules that I use when it comes to social media, right? Rule number 1, post and move on to something else. Social media.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but anytime I post anything related to mental health, especially when it comes to the platform of Get Home Safe, I will post 3 videos that have nothing to do with Get Home Safe. Then I'll post my video of what I'm covering. And then I give you other content that's more positive or bright, or a piece of advice, whether it comes to wellness or just self-management or mental health. And then I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm off, right? And I might come back if I have other clips from like past interviews, because I have a lot of content on. And sometimes there's a emotional responsibility to, did I represent the person well who I sat down with, and did I put out all sides of their story, or did I put out what side social media would like to see this week, and then I do their side a month later.
And there is that balance. What you just said is like, how do I use this platform to promote what I'm here to promote, meaning for the other person? And then how do I also use this platform to encourage people to think differently, or to encourage people to expand their minds, right? How do I use that? Because that's a very difficult line to balance, right? Because I have my own agenda, but then I have a responsibility to the person that I've now asked to come and join my effort and do this. And then part of that deal is, hey, I'm going to promote you. I'm going to promote your music. But if I'm only blindsided, like if I'm only hyper focused on my agenda, then I gain a reputation to say, well, this is about a deal, and this is not really about Small Wooden Box. This is not really about the artist, right? And I think that that's important.
It's a two-way street, though.
It is.
The reason I say it's a two-way street is artists, not all, some are naturally selfish people.
All. Just kidding.
The art. It's about the art. It's about the sacrifice to produce art and to make the art. So if I tell you, hey, we're trying to advertise you and you're not advertising yourself, you're also not showing all sides that people can fall in love with. So as you're here to be loved as an artist, whether you realize that or not. Even if you say it's about the art, people are appreciating your hard work that brought that art to life.
I agree with you completely.
Right.
I think that there was, I did canned posts where I built the language and I sent it out to our entire team. Repost this on your own personal thing. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you all the language.
It's just a story, even if it's just a story.
And at this time, stories weren't even, I don't even think they were a thing when we were doing it, right? It was just posting on your page. And
stories were a thing. They weren't big.
They weren't
They
popular.
were becoming a thing.
It was like just at the front end of stories. Because they had Instagram Live, but stories were just starting to develop.
And then it was live. Then they tried to push the live. And stories were dominating live. That's why.
Then stories became.
That's why the stories are the thing in terms of how you notice Instagram is formatted now, because people are spending more time in their stories than they are on the main feed because the live feed has too many advertisements. But now what they're doing with the stories is they'll slide in an advertisement between every 2 pages.
Do they?
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Oh my God, I haven't even noticed.
So sometimes you'll be in someone's story and you'll be an advertiser. You don't realize it's an advertisement until you're like halfway through. And what I always think of is when I see it, because now they have to tell you that it's sponsored. You have to look at the whole video to realize it's sponsored, number one. And number two, you have to think, hey, is this someone that I'm actually following? Because they don't look familiar.
That's a big part for me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see more and more. Now, I am taking another kind of big break from social media. Not a major I'm coming off because I do enjoy keeping up with people around me, but need some space. And I have a sticky note every night that I put on my phone now that says don't touch for 30 minutes. So like when I wake up, I'm not touching my phone. That became a big problem for me.
I mean, touching social media?
Touching is never a problem. Shutting up. So make that clear. Social media, waking up in the morning and having the first thing I look at, I just automatically was going into Instagram. My algorithm is now, I have curated my algorithm for the most part. Now they've usurped my curation and now they're bringing in people that I don't even know. And I'm like, what is this? But funny things and cooking demonstrations. That's what I love. I love like comedic posts and cooking demonstrations. And so that's my algorithm now. And so it's enjoyable for me to wake up and start looking at that. But then other things would creep in, like people that I know and then I see, like it just takes you down this weird rabbit hole. But I would just the pure act. So I live with anxiety and that's something that I'm paying more and more close attention to because it gets worse as you get older, right? If you're not handling it.
Sounds like we're going to have an interview on Mental Health Monday. It's coming open. Let me know.
Very open to it because I'm learning more and more about myself, learning about my anxiety, learning about ADHD, learning about like all these things that contribute to to safe mental health, right? And like to positive mental health and like how I need to be in control of these external things. I can only control myself. And part of that control is like I have to put controls in place, right? And so reading about how getting on your phone first thing in the morning contributes to having an anxious day. Like it's just too much information first thing in the morning. Where I like to listen to the news, I like to watch the news, I like to read news articles, but I need to not have anything in front of me. When I wake up, it has to be me and myself, right? Maybe my partner, maybe the person, whoever I'm interacting with at that moment, but an actual human is fine. But just being able to wake up and have that space to a runway into my day where it's
important.
So important. And I didn't know. I swear to God, I started this about a month ago and it is changing my routine. It's changing how my day goes. It is allowing me, because one, I think the conscious decision to do that reminds me every morning that I am trying to be positive. I am trying to fix things. I am trying to stay away from things that tap into my anxieties. And that reminder alone, just first thing in the morning, I see that note, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. Right? And like that alone just gives me a positive start to the day. And so I love that. I say when people are like, how you doing? And I'm known for like going out all the time and being out in the bars and the scene. And I've pulled back from a lot of that People are like, how you doing? I'm like,
Takes a lot of us.
minding my business and making my bed. That is my statement now, because I'm like, making my bed has changed. That's something that I started like about a year ago. Doing that every morning. I don't always do it every morning, and I give myself grace. But to that point, like making my bed, I didn't understand it for a long time. I'm like, I'm going to sleep in it later anyway. Why do I have to make it? I didn't realize it was contributing to the chaos in my head. I didn't realize that just that structure alone of waking up and making my bed. Now, every time I walk into my room, I'm like, yeah, I did that. You know, like I'm proud of myself. It sounds so stupid to people, but
Small accomplishments.
small accomplishments.
So Small Wooden Box concert series. What's one thing you think the community could have done better with the series when they had it?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. I would say, I mean, we had a lot of great support, but when you speak to the community, that's layered, right? That's loaded, saying the community, right?
Peel these
Like,
onions
yeah.
back. Let's go.
So as I mentioned, you know, that one layer of not having community support from the people that were around us, like Small Wooden Box being a space itself, a venue itself that wasn't being supported. Again, we did a lot during the pandemic, and there was very little people in and out because people weren't doing that, right? And but not having more support from like the neighborhood, right? And that to me could have been better. People were watching. It was funny because I think it was a lot of me doing a lot of. I think of the three of us. We call ourselves Gorilla. We took the 2 letters from each of our names and then call ourselves Gorilla, the crew. So that's me and Reem and Jamon. And I think of the 3 of us, I'm the most social. Reem knows a lot of people, but I think I know a lot of people, right? And I keep in touch with a lot of people. So I was constantly, before every show, I'm like texting my friends directly saying, please just jump on. Just jump on. You can put it on in the background, put it on while you're cooking. Like, it doesn't matter. Just jump on. Yeah. It's just music, you know? And that, I just wish there was more. You know, I wish there was more. I was so grateful and thankful, and don't want to sound like I don't have gratitude for those that did support us and got online and watched us and commented, and everybody loved it. But I just wish that could have sustained. I wish that we could have seen this past the pandemic and had the community really support this very guerrilla style, very organic kind of music.
Back to the boom bap era.
Yeah, exactly, right? And you asked about the tiny desk concerts and how similar we were. What I loved was we were compared to it often. Like, a lot of people just saw it.
That's a good success.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a good
And
success.
part of it was because Small is in our title and Tiny is in theirs. A lot of people are very supportive. They're like, Tiny Box concert series, whatever. But I loved that we had that interview component. Like, that was just, to me, our differentiator. It was so special to me. And I wish the community had taken more time to invest in the artists, because that's what we were doing. And we were trying to make it easy. We were trying to make consumption of what does our local art scene look like? Like DC, if anybody knows about the DC music scene, art scene in general, DC ain't on the map. Go-Go's on the map. Go-Go is known to be DC, but how many people can name 5 Go-Go artists? How many people groups? How many people can do that? Unless they're from DC, unless they're listening to Go-Go.
So there's a difference between being on the map and being consumed. And I think that's something that's conflated often, right?
Exactly.
So being on the map means if you're in Chicago, you know about Jersey club music. If you're in California, you know about Jersey club music. If you're in Tennessee, you know who Kendrick Lamar is. If you're in Oregon, you know who Taylor Swift is. That's being on the map. Being consumed is Go-Go. Go-Go is now consumed, and it has been sampled.
Oh, so many times, so much.
Avery is a good example of it.
I was literally just thinking that. I remember her being in Baltimore and her song came on. I'm like, y'all don't know about this. This is Go-Go. And her song was that one.
And when you are consumed because you feel that there's a time period that people are tuned into what you're doing, you assume that you are on the map, and that's not necessarily true, right? And the reason that that's important is DC has a rich culture when it comes to artists, but it doesn't have a rich infrastructure when it comes to raising, producing, packaging, and putting out an artist.
Yeah.
An example of that is Wale going outside of DC to get big, to come back to DC. But there's still a lot of question marks on how much is he appreciated in the culture that he's aware of. You get what I'm saying? And does that have to do with relationships and a couple other things? Maybe. But people outside of your city don't know about your relationships. They only know about you.
Exactly. And when I said on the map, I meant DC, not even the artist and stuff. But DC doesn't have that broad, like, touch where people, like, if I go to Chicago and I'm like, yeah, they're like, you know, DC is seen as a political city. It's a political hub. It's close.
But that's what's on TV the most.
Exactly.
So that's how we're viewed as packaged.
Absolutely.
Right?
So we're cloaked. DC, I would say DC is cloaked in politics and in conservative, somewhat conservative. It's also very transient. So people are coming in and out with the administrations, and we're an airport. We're small, like to your point, we're dense as shit.
We're a town that happens to be a city.
Exactly. And so but when you go to that next layer down into the art world, right, there's so much beautiful art and talent and amazingness, and nobody knows that about DC because people like Wale, people like Reem Did The talented ass mofos, but I don't know, but maybe it's because they're in my backyard. I don't ever hear, like, you know where Chance the Rapper's from. You know where Kendrick is from. You know where these folks are from, right? Do we know that Marie is from, isn't she from Baltimore? No.
I'm not sure.
Where's she from? Is she from DC?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Anyway, let's reel that one back. Edit that out, please.
Who's the one that's from DC that we all know? Is it Maya? No, it's not Maya. What's her name?
Silver Spring.
Yeah. She's
Maya, no. Maya makes
My Love Is Like Whoa. Is that? I'm thinking of who did the My Love Is Like Whoa joint. I'm gonna Google it. Keep. I'm not singing it on this camera. Nah, you're not catching me. Look at you. Say, look at that boy go.
Maya definitely. I think Maya repped for us, and like, I mean, she's not a singer though, but I was thinking of what's her name, the actress. She reps for DC hard. Who's that actress that I'm thinking of? Taraji P. Henson. That woman.
Maya.
Like, well. So Maya's from Silver Spring, Maryland, which is DC, not and whatever. Yeah.
That's her. Yeah. Okay. Don't want to get demonetized. Be careful. Play it for too long. Like, what you say?
I can't remember her name, but the female in the group, Diggable Planets, she's from Silver Spring, and she, I think, it's known that she's from Silver Spring, right? Again, maybe this is just through my associations that I know or don't know people, but I don't think if I went to California or if I went to Chicago and I said Wale, I don't think people would know that he's from DC.
No, people know Wale's from DC.
Do they?
Yeah, they know Wale's from DC.
So maybe
everybody knows Wale's from DC.
Okay.
The issue isn't Wale being from DC. The issue is, where's the foundation for the other artists to come up through DC? No, not him. I don't think that's Wale's responsibility. I actually think that's a very unfair assumption that Wale's supposed to reach back and bring us up, right? Because what that to me speaks to is, does he have an actual relationship with these people? Because when you're coming up as an artist, from what I've seen, there's usually a certain amount of momentum that you create for yourself. And then when you get to a certain, I don't want to say stratosphere, because people usually think stratosphere is the top.
Yeah.
It's when you get to a certain point, is that artist now reaching out to those artists, or did that artist already have a relationship with those artists as they're coming up? And then it's, okay, are we a right fit for me to be facilitating with you? Because remember, genre is built on relationships.
Yeah, but like, look at the crossroads with Raheem and Wes, right? You know, Wes Ellington. Let me say that again. Wes Ellington Felton, and Raheem Devon doing the Crossroads. Like, I thought that was really great because Wes is still a very local artist, right? And Raheem got big, and he came back and said, "Let's do this album together." Da 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 da. Like,
relationship.
It's a relationship, yes, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I will politely agree to disagree with you because I think that it is the artist's responsibility at a certain level. When you get to that Wale level, I think this, to me, this concept goes across the board, and it directly answers your question to community. What could a community have done differently? Wale is part of our community. Wale is part of our community, and you lead by example. And you show other artists how do you reach back. Even if you're not big, even if you get mid-level, there's still a level of how do we support each other? How are we an artist community within our own community, right? Like, we are DC artists. That's what we are. We're from DC. I'm not a patriot. I'm not like, by any means, like DC. I'm not that girl.
I get what you're saying.
When there is a sense of community saying, hey, for example, me calling on all my friends, we did what, 24 shows. Every single one of the performers, minus 2, were people that I call friends, were people that I could call up and be like, hey, do you want to do this show? That was me tapping into my community. That was me saying, yes, you're right, relationship.
But that's still relationships. So when it comes to the Wale reference, the reason I disagree, I get what you're saying. What you're saying is correct, but there's supposed to be a foundation that's built around that. So for example, 2 years ago, YouTube through BET did an all artists on call situation where artists met with all other artists in the DMV and said, hey, how do we become successful in the DMV through YouTube?
Yeah.
Wale was there.
Okay.
Now Wale was there, and there was a bunch of other artists that were there too. They were mixing, they were networking, and then through that, and Wale, he had security, but he let other people come up and talk to him and chat. So it's like, for that, when I see that, that is the infrastructure of DC, which is the artist's responsibility, saying, hey, if we put everybody in a room, are people going to be willing to network, talk to each other, and maybe do work down the road?
Yeah.
Right? So when I hear the artist should, I usually think of bootstrapping, and I disagree with that, because it's like, I sacrifice so much to get here. I would like to help some people, but I can't help everyone.
Yeah, that's impossible.
But when people say what you say, they usually think, nah, you have to help everyone. And it's like, nah, because that means my resource is going to be used up. Like, as much as I love Jay-Z, I agree and disagree with you can't help everybody.
No.
But I agree with, hey, there is a certain amount of folks that I should be able to help if possible, but I'll help you doing it this way, not the way you guys think I should do it, because that's what manages my resources, and that's what I think is the best version of me helping everybody around me.
But my key word in what I said to you earlier was lead by example, right?
Yeah.
Wale cannot help everybody by himself.
Yeah.
But you create an example and you create a blueprint for how other artists, as you lift these artists, it trickles down. It's a pyramid.
Yeah.
It's that pyramid scheme, but in a positive way, right? Where it's like you're going to help 4 people. Each of those 4 people are going to help 4 people. Yeah. Each of those are going to, and it's going to continue down the line. And if you lead by example, you create a blueprint, you show folks how it's done, you teach, because people have to learn conceptually how to do this. Yeah. Doing something like that, now that's easier said than done. He's taking care of his career without a doubt.
And still keeping his career afloat, because remember, right now, they're in that time period that you may be moving out of the artists that are part of the relevant conversations, and it's very hard to be productive when there's this mindset and this narrative that you're trying to stay relevant when you're still just in love with the music and what you're making.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also, though, like I said, I reached out to, I did the rabbit hole thing where I was finding artists through like, Tejas was his name. Tejas was an artist that I found through another artist, and then I just like Instagrammed him and whatever. I was like, hey, would you want to perform? Because his stuff was really good. Thank you. And that was just like, I just saw his stuff on Instagram and it was really good. And that's how he was small, but he was like performing a lot more in Virginia. He ended up being one of my favorite shows. And had I not reached out, like I said, every other artist, minus 2 or 3 others, were my friends, and I've already seen them perform. I already know what they're capable of. In hindsight, if we strike it up again, I want to do that. I want to go more outward, outside of my network, outside of that.
If or when you guys start the series back up again.
Yep.
Do you see that happening since he's moving to California?
No, I'm anxious to do that.
Another question. Spot on.
You're listening? He's to blame. Yes, is my baby.
Okay.
I love them both dearly, but it was really, truly my baby. We all put equal parts in where I'm not taking away any of the work that they did.
Yeah.
But like I've been striking up conversations with other artists and saying, hey, I need to do it again. I am feeling like I need it. This is something I'm good at. This is something that brings me joy. This is something that I want to continue to do. So if I don't do it with the same people, that's fine, but I'm going to bring that sensibility. That's still that general underpinning concept about creating a space for local artistry, creating a space for people who don't have that natural reach. You know, I love the idea of bringing that concept to, now that things are open, there are these smaller Black-owned bars or small business bars. It might not even have to be Black-owned, but it was like something that infuses these businesses, these small businesses, with great ideas, with good programming, you know, and that's basically what it was, good programming. And that's transferable, right? That can move from one place to another if done correctly. And so, yeah, I still have it in me. So I see it happening again. And we may not call it small wooden box, but also tell Jamon not to move.
I actually, in our artist conversation, I think there was something important that I forgot to mention. Too many people think artists reaching back this is going to look so funny with this music over background. I do edit because I can't get rid of this music. But they think artists reaching back means, hey, you have to do a feature with this artist. And to me, that's not reaching back. That's business.
Yeah.
Reaching back as an artist is, hey, you pulling artists to the side or artists pulling you to the side saying, hey, man, music-wise, what am I doing wrong right now?
Yes, that's what I mean.
But both artists have to be open to seeing each other as equals or folks that are coming up and actually giving them real advice. And the artist does have to be open to listening to what that person says. But this also starts with, does this person have my best interest at heart?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't have each other's interests at heart. So how am I supposed to trust this person who's a stranger that's interested in me because of my craft, that's going to give me advice about my future and how I go about it, especially when streaming services aren't paying artists right now, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we're finding out that all record labels are basically owned by 2 record labels and they're just paying one artist $1 billion. And it turns out that in all these other artist contracts, artists aren't getting paid because of that, especially when you're finding out that, unfortunately, iHeart is double to triple dipping when it comes to all these music venues and concerts. And it's like, how am I as an artist
affecting that ecosystem also? Yeah.
Your advice comes from that ecosystem and everything else that's going on.
Yep.
I pay attention real heavy to it because it's like, you know, just because Velvet closed doesn't mean my research or anything else I've handled stop. That just means I'm more quiet and watching.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, there needs to be a serious conversation about this because I've asked 3 artists about that and no one has a good answer for me. And it's like, are you guys actually thinking about the world that you're building your craft and artistry in and how that's going to affect you? Because at the end of the day, you guys need money to make this happen. And when I see series like yours, I see series like yours and I think not only is that important to the culture, I think that really gave the culture a different voice it didn't have before. But why wasn't your product better protected or appreciated? And why didn't people come around the product of what you guys had created better? That's how I feel personally.
I agree with you. And I was going to say, you know, human nature is that we are ego driven, right? Which creates a space for gatekeeping. A lot of people gatekeep. A lot of people who find success don't want to share the blueprint, like I said, or share it in a way where you're learning conceptually, you're understanding, having that conversation, right? Not just saying, oh yeah, I can get you a contract with so-and-so. No, that's not helping anybody. You know, like
the contract's just another form of work.
It's just
how do you build past the contract?
And it's another form of getting stuck in that ecosystem that you just talked about, right? Like you're not what did I'm going to use Wally. I don't know anything about Wally, so if he comes
this just off the top. This just off the top,
if while they were to sit down with a group of artists, talk, like you said, the YouTube thing that they created or whatever, like those information systems, like ways to just put out information. This is what I learned. This is, like, people poo-poo on Taylor Swift all the time.
Yeah.
But I truly see her as somebody who does not gatekeep, right? Like, she had this idea, I'm gonna redo my music so that I own it. And she shared that concept with the world. She didn't just do, like, genius. But people are like, oh, and Taylor Swift sucks. But, like, she just did something that was really smart, and maybe other people have done it before her.
I think people like to conflate their dislike with whether someone's giving them good advice or not. And those are two separate things. The person who hates you can give you good advice.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, those things are very possible.
I still in the music world don't understand why everybody hates her so much. I can't understand it.
We'll talk about that later.
No, I want to talk about it now. They say she's not a real musician. Why?
They say she's not a real musician?
So many people say, like, she's not she's pop.
I don't think that's valid. If someone says she has a very catty personality and has a lot of beef with different folks, I'm like, nah, that's realistic.
Does it? Yeah. I don't keep up with her, like, personal shenanigans, but
well, I mean, she's always under a microscope. I've heard a lot of stories about her in high school and stuff like that, which make it really sad too. And like, if I was a person who was hated by a whole entire town when I was in high school because people knew I was going to be a star, it wouldn't be hard for me to turn out to be that kind of person.
Yeah, and I don't know her. So I'm never going to assume that I know her based on the stories that are being told about her. Yeah. I don't know her. I don't really, excuse my French, I don't fucking care about her. Yeah. I don't care about her as a person. She is her. And do I even like her music? No, maybe. I don't know. Maybe a song. Yeah. It's on at a restaurant and I'll be like, oh.
But it's not enough for me to hate the person.
It's not enough for me to hate the person. Yeah. It's not enough for me to hate on the person. It's never going to be, I will never be that person that says a musician is not a musician. A person who picks up you could pick up a harmonica, you are now a musician.
That's a very personal insult.
And I think it is so many musicians in this, and I hear it in DC a lot, like our DC community shits on people, especially the underground, like the folks that really, this is their passion, this is what they do, and they're not getting paid a lot for it, whatever. They're driven by something totally different, right? I hear a lot of those folks saying these folks aren't musicians because it's pop and it's this and it's not this and it's not that.
There's so much effort put into disqualifying the person next to you that you're moving away from the music and what it's supposed to be about.
And what is art? What is music? When people ask me, I used to, I was dating a somewhat locally prominent artist, and they're like, are you an artist too? And I'm like, how do you answer that question, right? And like when I'm producing the show, people come to the show and be like, oh, are you a musician? And I'm like, how do you answer those questions? Art is so subjective.
Yeah, the focus should really be, hey, do you enjoy the art that's in front of us?
Exactly.
That's why you're supposed to keep the focus. And I say that when it comes to a lot of the work that I do, are you keeping the focus? Anytime I feel I'm tripping or moving away, I get outside this room, which is a nice big office, and I ask my partner or one of my folks, I call them up and I say, hey guys, am I tripping? Yeah. Am I still keeping the focus or am I losing a little bit? Because, when you get too deep into this thing, it's very easy to not realize, oh, you have blinders on. Yeah. And that's just where you are now in the process.
And look, in our age group, I don't know if you're in my age group. Right?
35.
Oh, you're young. Yeah. I'm 46.
Yeah.
Said that like I was old. I'm 46.
I was like,
there are folks in my age group that shit on new music because yes, hip hop right now is in a space where there's a lot of artists where I can't understand jack shit that they're saying. I cannot understand what they're saying. Yeah. That is a common joke now about the current musicians that are out there. But I dig some of it, and I will never say, oh, hip-hop's not what it used to be. Yeah, hip-hop's not what it used to be. Music's supposed to evolve. Music is supposed to, and it's being consumed by different ears, and it's being consumed by a new generation. And there was once upon a time where, you're not sitting here listening to My Girl and jamming out, because that music was different then, right? And then hip-hop comes on the scene, neo soul comes on the scene, and and they
came on the scene hard.
And that's what I know about music. Yeah. But I'm not gonna look at my kids and be like, why are you listening to this shit? I never call new music shit. I give it a chance. I want to listen to it. I want to see what it's got going for me. Some of it I like.
Evolve into.
Yeah. I am the co-producer of Small Wooden Box concert series, and this is a day in my shoes.